Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala wa ali Muhammad. So, my brothers and sisters, thank you for joining tonight in Quds program, and we are going to start shortly, inshallah. So, before we start the program, for some people maybe they are not aware of that. Traditionally, we conduct this program um, together in a combined Jummah Friday prayers in Fremont area, and then we have a live demonstration. That's what we have done in the past. But for this year, because of the changing dynamics, in COVID, we were not sure how things will evolve, so we could not get permissions, in place before this date. So that's why we all the centers are now organizing this program locally in the centers. But inshallah, God willing, inshallah, we will have regular rallies in the coming days, inshallah. So for tonight program, I will give you the quick format here. So we will start with the Quran recitation shortly. And after Quran recitation, we have a couple of presentations from our youth leaders. And after that, we are blessed actually, with one brother from our community. He's activist and leader, brother Marat Sarama, and he's here, so he will deliver his speech and he will educate. He's from Palestine, so he has, in direct contact with those people, and he understands the suffering, so he will educate us in the background and our responsibilities as well. And finally, after that, we have a quiz. It's like 15 minutes quiz. And after the quiz, the prizes will be also awarded, inshallah. And finally, Syed will, inshallah, have a wrap up, inshallah, the closing remarks, and we will conclude the program, inshallah. So let's start with the Quran recitation first. So I invite my son, Muhammad Bakr, to come on the podium for a short Quran recitation. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والليل إذا يغشى والنهار إذا تجلى وما خلق الذكر والأنثى إن سعيكم لشتى فأما من أعطى واتقى وصدق بالحسنى فسنيسره لليسرى وأما من بخل واستغنى وكذب بالحسنى فسنيسره للعسرى وما يغني عنه ماله إذا تردى إن علينا للهدى وإن لنال الآخرة والأولى فأنذرتكم نارا تلظى لا يصلاها إلا الأشقى الذي كذب وتولى وسيجنبها الأتقى الذي يؤتي ماله يتزكى وما لأحد عنده من نعمة تجزى إلا ابتغاء وجه ربه الأعلى ولسوف يرضى صدق الله العلي العظيم.
Please recite salawat for Muhammad Baqir. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So, brothers and sisters, so first of all, I congratulate all of you for your presence tonight here because you have become the voice for the oppressed ones all over the world. And today is the day when our Grand Marja Ayatollah Khomeini initiated this initiative to stand up against oppression for Quds as well as all around the world wherever there is oppression. So your presence is, it's really, you are basically making a difference here, inshallah. And we have to take it to the next level, inshallah, as well. So brothers and sisters, so we can tolerate, different languages, different races, different cultures, different traditions we can tolerate, but we cannot tolerate and we must not tolerate injustice. And this day is basically is about to stand up against injustice. As of today, if you look closely, you will see that Zionism is the root cause of injustice as of today in the world. And unfortunately, Zionism is such a cancer that is hurting us by all means, whatever it is present. It is our responsibility from all aspects, to raise our voices and contain them and finally eliminate them for the better future of the mankind. Unfortunately, this Zionism does exist, which is the back face for the Judaism. In fact, in Islam as well, sometimes we are hijacked by extremists and they present the wrong version of Islam to the world. And it also hurts us as well. And same applies to Christianity as well. So it's all our responsibility to, to defend the divine faiths and protect, their dignity from these extremists, inshallah. So we will continue. So the purpose of tonight's talk is to, educate ourselves what is happening. We, as the followers of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam, we distance ourselves from oppressors by all means. And we are against discrimination from race perspective, from color, religion, from all means, we are against, and we distance ourselves from these activities. So we will continue over tonight talk, and we will educate ourselves. And we have tonight some youth speakers. So I will start by inviting first youth speaker, and she is Zainab Abbas. She is a youth community leader. Basically, she's 16 years old. She's a 11th grader, and she was placed first in the Martin Talk back in 2019 in national competition. MashaAllah. And she was also a spokesperson for Muslim Congress during the Quds Day last year as well. So please welcome Zainab Abbas with the louder salawat for her speech. Sallu ala Muhammad.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. My name is Zainab Abbas, and today we are all gathered here to commemorate a day that is a global day of unity among Muslims, known as Al-Quds. It is a day in which we stand up against the tyrants of the world and show our love for all the oppressed people of this dunya. Just 4 days ago, an innocent 17-year-old Palestinian boy named Mohammed Ghanimat got shot twice in the stomach by a group of Israeli soldiers near an area of the occupied West Bank, Palestine, where Mohammed and his family live. He is currently in the hospital with gunshot wounds to his stomach and back. His father had said he saw his son collapse on the ground, his shirt soaked in blood. And what was done about this injustice? Absolutely nothing. The tragedies of Muhammad and other children being attacked happened only a few days ago, but there are countless brutal killings that go undocumented, and this has been happening for more than 70 years. Roughly 6.8 million Palestinians live in the occupied Palestine territory, which includes the areas of the West Bank, East Jerusalem, and the Gaza Strip. The Israeli government aims to ensure that they maintain control across Palestine. Over the years, Israel has pursued a policy of ethnic supremacy, violating Palestinian human rights and encouraging Palestinian oppression. In 1948, the Zionist people occupied the land of Palestine with the master plan conducted by the evil colonial powers of the world. Zionists are people with a racist ideology who consider themselves to be the chosen nation of God. And one of their goals is to control Western mass media to create Islamophobia in the world. They not only captured their homeland, but also put them in concentration camps where they tortured and killed around 4,000 Palestinians and Shias at the time. And since then, thousands of innocent people have been killed, not only in Palestine, but all around the world by Zionist forces. And that is why we are here today. Al-Quds means Jerusalem in Arabic. It is one of the holiest sites for Islam, and it houses one of the greatest mosques of Islam in the world, called Al-Masjid al-Aqsa. In 1979, right after the Islamic Revolution, Imam Khomeini rahmatullah declared Quds Day as a global day of unity among Muslims. So this is to raise awareness and denounce the occupation of the great Al-Aqsa Mosque and the Muslim Holy Land by Zionists. Islam teaches us to respect our Jewish and Christian neighbors and to treat our neighbors with morality. Islam teaches us to condemn oppression of all forms against innocent people regardless of their faith. So whether there's a Jew being oppressed or a Christian or a Muslim, we must denounce the oppressor and support the oppressed. So what should we be doing to help? Imam Khomeini said that this day should be observed to support the cause of the Palestinian people, in which we need to bring a reawakening to the world and educate people on what has really been happening to the people of Palestine. And finally, this day should also be celebrated to conduct protests and rallies against Zionism and to show our support to the Palestinian people and those suffering around the world, letting them know that they are not alone in the struggle of freedom. Not only that, but Al-Quds has a much deeper connection to the ultimate rule of our last Imam Mahdi alayhi salam. Our last Imam will reappear from the city of Mecca, will make Kufa as his military capital, and will march towards Al-Quds first to free the city from its oppressors and bring peace to this world. So inshallah, Allah will bring the reappearance of our Imam and allow us all to be a part of his army to fight the war against the oppressors of the world. Thank you so much.
Muhammad. MashaAllah. So please recite a louder salawat for Zainab Abbas. MashaAllah. Excellent. Allahumma salli. Muhammad. So, brothers and sisters, see that, mashallah, I was listening to Sister Zainab. It shows that, she has done a thorough analysis of the situation. And that's what we need now. We need to go beyond our rituals, And so, if we have youths, you understand the whole situation, we are sure that Zionism days are counted. But we need to have this thought process in place, if inshallah, I hope that our youth will come forward and, put together some plans to help, inshallah, our communities and extend our arms to it, inshallah. So as again, this the Quds Day is not only about Palestine, it's about Bahrain, it is about Qatif in Saudi Arabia, it's Azad Kashmir, it's about Bahrain, about Yemen, it's about Syria, Afghanistan, Pakistan, you name the countries. So wherever there is oppression, is injustice, we stand against it, and we fully support oppressed people in these regions. And again, the Judaism is not Zionism. Zionism is the racism. It's the barbarism. Zionism is against that. We're not against Judaism here. Judaism is a divine faith. They were brothers in principle in mankind. So we will continue our talk now, and I would request our next youth leader, Imran Mirza. He's, mashallah, Zakir of Alibat as well. I've seen him reciting Nohaz and sometimes, mashallah. And tonight he will be presenting presentation, and he will educate us on the Quds, inshallah. So come forward, welcome him with the louder salawat.
Assalamu alaikum, my dear brothers and sisters. Today is Friday, the 27th of Ramadan, or the last Friday of Ramadan. On this day, it is Al-Quds Day, and Al-Quds Day is always on the last Friday of Ramadan. But some of you may wonder, what is Al-Quds Day? As I mentioned previously, it takes place every last Friday of Ramadan. On this day, demonstrations are held to protest against the occupation of Palestine. It is estimated that about 80 Islamic and non-Islamic countries all over the world participate in this event to fight against the oppression that Palestinian people face. In some Islamic countries, rallies are held before Jummah Salat as long as they have permission for holding conferences that day. But another question remains: how did Al-Quds Day come to be in the first place? In 1948, Israel was established as a country, and soon after, the Zionists began to occupy Palestine. Ever since this issue began to occur, many scholars have preached for peace for Palestine. After the victory of the Islamic Revolution in 1979, Palestine's official ties to Israel were destroyed, and Israel's embassy in Iran was granted to the Palestinians. Then, on Friday, the 13th of Ramadan, 1399 after Hijrah, or August 7th, 1979, Israel began to invade Lebanon, leading Imam Khomeini to make a speech and establish Al-Quds Day for victims of tyranny and oppression. But there is one more thing to establish: the importance of the day. Al-Quds Day is important to commemorate because it is when the oppressed can stand up against their oppressors, alongside with many others. By supporting countries like Palestine, we are able to give them hope in defeating tyrants like Israel. It also gives other Muslim nations the ability to fight against the superpowers that try to suppress them. It is a warning sign to those who abuse their power to hurt others, and a ray of hope for those who are victim to these powers. Salawat.
Please recite a louder salawat for Imran Mirza. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So, brothers and sisters, it's another example, by the way, for the kids. We need to have these type of programs so that we engage our kids so they take practical, steps, as they move forward, inshallah. So taking this discussion next level. So, brothers and sisters, so you know that we are almost end of this Ramadan now, and it's the fourth week, basically, we're ending of Ramadan now. In this month of fasting, we have broken the chains of our desires. We have broken the chains of our bad habits. So we are free men now. As a free man, we should go with the voice of the nature, with the voice of the creator, and we ask, for the liberation of Palestine from this illegal occupation. We ask these Zionists, to leave the illegal occupation of the Palestinian land, and and as move, and they just go away from this land. So we this is our ask, as a free person, as a citizen of United States. This is our free speech, that we want justice all over the world, in this country as well as overseas and everywhere, inshallah. So with this, I would invite our special guest for the tonight, that is Brother Marat Sarama. He's Palestinian American Muslim right activist, and he belongs from Sacramento. He's president of Democrats for Justice in Palestine. He's author and a sponsor of many resolutions within Democratic Party for Palestinian cause. Welcome him with the louder salawat. Salli.
Assalamu alaikum. First of all, I want to say I'm very honored and I'm very thrilled to be among you here tonight. When brother was talking to me, they were talking about a Palestinian speaker, but mashallah, just hearing the sister talking earlier, she educated us about our cause and educated us about what's going on in Palestine. That brings joy to my heart, showing that this community here in Pleasanton, because we talked about Zionism, the founder of Zionism, or the founder of the state of Israel years ago, did not anticipate this is happening. That on this day, the last Jum'ah of Ramadan, we'll be here together commemorating Al-Quds Day, teaching our youngs and teaching our children what is it all about, and what is Al-Quds, and how we can defend the oppressed folks of Palestine. So this is I'm very honored and thrilled to see this community. And I want to say that the founders of Al-Quds Day, may God bless them, rahmatullah alayhim, they did a great well for Muslims all over the globe, united us all and one thing and one cause only, to be united for Jerusalem, to be united for Al-Quds, to be united for the liberation of Al-Aqsa, inshallah. So that being said, we're talking about Al-Aqsa. In the last few weeks, you guys heard many, they call it clashes from the Israelis against our brothers and sisters in Jerusalem. And these clashes were brought about from the Zionist idea about making the Al-Aqsa compound into their, what they call, temple. This group of people called Umana Jabal al-Haykal in Arabic, which is the trustee of the Temple Mount. That's how they refer to in their own beliefs. And they want to go ahead and actually invade the Masjid al-Aqsa. And their main idea is to establish their temple on that very ground and compound of Al-Aqsa Mosque. In the last 2 weeks alone, there was 3,700 settlers of these extremists that were actually went inside the Al-Aqsa compound and not only visited, but they did their own way of salawat in there, where their own rabbis actually say you cannot be going into the Al-Aqsa. It's forbidden for Jews. This is their own rabbis, the ones that actually the one that actually true Jewish folks. They're saying you cannot be coming in over there. These Zionists hijacked the idea of Judaism, as the brother mentioned. They hijacked it for their own way, as we are the superior folks. We're going to go ahead and actually, it's going to be only us and us only. And that Masjid al-Aqsa that represent millions of Muslims only belongs to these smaller minority of Zionists. And their idea about putting that temple, they think that they're going to be returning, the Messiah will return when they established that temple on the Al-Aqsa grounds. There were many attempts before. Once the Aqsa was actually burned down from the same exact group, they try many things to do. Like they actually trying to dress up like traditional Arab folks to gain access inside, so they can do their own tukus or their own way of salawat inside there. So they can go out and actually ignite something for this Zionist group, racist group, to come into the Al-Aqsa and actually do harm to the masjid. But inshallah, as long as we have folks like yourself, as long as we have folks in many parts of the world that remembers Al-Quds, here from Pleasanton, California, and Northern California, all the way thousands of miles away, this thing will never happen. The Murabitin and Al-Aqsa, a few of them, a few young folks, like the folks I'm looking at right now, stood to those racist Zionists getting in with nothing other than stones. And they called them rioters, and they bombed him inside the Al-Aqsa mosque. If you saw the images, just came in recently, they were all laying down on Al-Aqsa grounds with their hands tied behind their backs inside the Al-Aqsa mosque. And they took them by the hundreds just because they're trying to defend their own masjid from these Zionist groups that's trying to go and gain access to Al-Aqsa. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah that we have folks like the sister that spoke earlier, that she gave us the background and she gave us a great presentation about what's happening on the ground in Palestine. Thank you, sister. I was touched by your speech. And also the young brother who actually gave a presentation about what is Al-Quds all about, what Al-Quds Day all about. And also educated us about Palestine, about the last Jum'ah in Ramadan, inshallah, will ignite us all. And we'll all, inshallah, will have salah, we'll salli fil Masjid al-Aqsa. We'll have a salah fil Masjid al-Aqsa, all of us, inshallah. And this last Jum'ah of Ramadan. And commemorate that day with the liberation of Al-Aqsa, with all of us in there, inshallah. Allahumma ameen. Allahumma ameen. With that, brothers and sisters, I actually was touched by the education that you guys have. I want to go ahead and see actually if you have any questions for me. I'll be more happy to answer any question you might have before I touch on things that we can do more than just commemorate Al-Aqsa on this day. So if you have any question about like my experience as a Palestinian or anything that you might have, I'm willing to go ahead and answer it. So, brother.
Yeah. So brothers and sisters, so we have allocated maybe 10 minutes or so for Q&A, for quick. So if you have any questions, please, you're welcome. Raise your hand and I can come to you.
Assalamu alaikum. Just a question is about, there are Christians there too, and I think they're also opposed to them. So is there like an outreach in Christian communities also? Because, that could provide additional support.
Yes, definitely. The Zionist idea actually, not only against Muslims, is against the Christians of Jerusalem as well. I'm a practicing Muslim, but I actually grew up in the suburbs of Jerusalem, in the areas in Ramallah. And I went to school where I had my friends who were Christians as well. So Palestinians, Christians are with us in solidarity for the liberation of Palestine. And they actually get the same aggression that we get as Muslims as well. In the last 2 weeks during Passover, Palestinian Christians from the West Bank were prevented from going into Jerusalem to go and practice their own in the Holy Church in Jerusalem. They were prevented from going in over there. So they do have the similar aggression on them, even though a lot of folks in the international community they look at them a little bit different. But for them, as far as part of the Palestinian mosaic or Palestinian community, they're not. They're Palestinians, and they are with us with the struggle. And many of them were involved in our in the political process and in the struggle against occupation. They participated in many revolutions, or in the PLO, for example, there were many representation from that community.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam, brother.
So, in the media in the past years, we've been seeing in the city of Jerusalem itself, in the Sheikh Jarrah neighborhood and other places, they're taking Muslims out of that neighborhood. Can you shed some light on what's happening with that?
Absolutely, brother. So Sheikh Jarrah has been in the media for last year. It was basically the war that happened last year against Gaza. The aggression against Gaza was a result of folks and citizens in Sheikh Jarrah being dragged from their own houses, from their own residence. They've been in there for years and decades. The Israeli court gave an order for these houses to be evacuated on the presence of these neighborhoods, or these houses were Jewish owned prior to the 1948, which is false narrative. There was never been a Jewish neighborhood in the Sheikh Jarrah before, but that Supreme Court, the Zionist Supreme Court, that does no justice, decided these houses belong to the Zionist Jews settlers. And that's why these settlers took these paperwork with them and went to these houses and trying to evacuate him and get him out. However, the brave folks of Sheikh Jarrah and from all over Palestine and from Jerusalem came together as one to defend the neighborhood. However, with the Zionist occupation being there, a lot of casualties, a lot of folks were killed, and some actually were evacuated by force from the neighborhood. But still, there's a court process still in place, and a lot of the international community, even though some of the United Nations actually issued resolutions against the displacement of folks in the Sheikh Jarrah. And this is not only happening in Sheikh Jarrah, just to elaborate on that, this is happening all over Palestine, where similar laws applies only to, applies only to the Israelis, meaning there's no justice for the Palestinian if he goes to the Israeli court. That's just not happening. So they can take, like, for example, my grandfather's land was taken by the Israeli military, and they called it military land. And I'm talking about thousands of dunams or thousands of acres in the Jordan Valley. You heard about the Jordan Valley annexation? About over 200 acres of my grandfather's land was taken just because it's a military area, and it used to be farmed by my grandfather and his brothers before the 1948, but it was taken by the Israeli military.
I've got a question for you.
Yes, brother.
Salam, brother. Yeah, many of the Arab countries have established diplomatic relations with Israel lately. Do the Palestinians feel betrayed by their fellow Arabs? How do you guys feel about it?
We don't feel betrayed by the people by the Arab people. We feel betrayed by the regimes. There's different between that. Like I was talking to the brother from Bahrain, and I was talking about the peace process that happened between the state of Bahrain, or the Mamlaka of Bahrain, or Kingdom of Bahrain with the Israeli regime. This is only between that regime and between the Israeli government. The people of Bahrain, every day they're protesting against the aggression of their own regime, and also standing with Palestine. Today, you just showed me a video that the people of Bahrain, on Al-Quds Day, commemorated Al-Quds Day in the street of Bahrain. We don't hear nothing about that because the oppressive regime does not allow the media to cover that kind of stuff. Same thing with other nations, from the Emirates or the Saudis. Same thing. The people of the Saudis, or the people of the Emiratis, they are our brothers and sisters. The regimes are the one who have interest in making those relationships, because they feel making that relationship will empower them, and will make him empowered, and they're not gonna lose their Western allies, so to speak. So there's a betrayal, yes, by the regimes, not by the people of these nations.
Assalamu alaikum. So I have a follow-up question to the brothers. This has been going on for many, many years now, and we've been commemorating Al-Quds Day since '79. How is that affecting our strategy? What are we doing? Are we just gonna keep on demonstrating? What are we doing about the regimes that are favorable to Israel? Like Jordan. Jordan is the neighbor. They can do a lot more than we can. or what can we do to pressurize Jordan and also to Egypt? The general sitting there, what is he doing? What are we doing to actually pressurize their governments to help the Palestinians? Because they're right there in the vicinity. Besides Lebanon, the two countries that I mentioned are not really doing much. So I want to know what can we do to actually make an impact on those governments by pressurizing our government here.
Uh, Very good question. Well, unfortunately, this government became instead of becoming becoming for the oppressor themselves became an oppressed governments. Like, for example, you mentioned Al Sisi. Al Sisi came to power in a coup against the first elected president in Egypt. Despite our own opinion about their ideology, or despite anybody's opinion about their ideology, they were voted in. President Morsi came to power by vote, right? Yes. So unfortunately, that did not go well with the Israeli government. So the Israeli government, with the collaboration of other countries, they behind the scene, they did their thing to go ahead and actually support the coup. And it's not no secret they did. When President Morsi said we're not going to leave Gaza alone in a speech, that right there, was his time to go, right? Type of deal. So that's what they did, and that's an unfortunate reality. However, the people of Egypt are the bravest folks, and inshallah, they will overthrow that dictator like they did with Hosni Mubarak. So when they do that, inshallah, they will be the biggest allies as they used to be, and they still are, the people of Egypt. As far as Jordan, same thing. The king is trying to go and help Jerusalem in many ways. Just recently, and they orchestrated a coup by his own brother with the collaboration of an Arab government, without mentioning any names, to go and overthrow the king. And they supported him just because he was trying to go on side and he was not in agreement about certain conditions about the Palestinian cause, which is the establishment, or Safkat al-Qarn, which is the of the century, the silver of the century. So that's what they were trying to. He was trying to go and actually go against that with his own condition, and they're trying to go ahead and get him to go ahead and sign off on it. And they tried to go and overthrow him just recently, as I mentioned, but that was failed coup against him. Same thing with other countries. You see what happening in Syria, for example. So it is an unfortunate reality. As I was talking to a brother last week, I was like, I don't know if you noticed, but we as Arab nations and we as Muslim nations, we suffer sometimes just for standing up for the injustice, or just for trying to, stand up against the Israeli aggression and stand up with the Palestinians. As a result of that, we suffer. And they said for us, it's fine. Unfortunately, the regimes, they fear on their, they fear on their thrones, and they fear they're not going to be in power anymore. And as a result, they start oppressing their own people to make sure no one stands for the Israeli regime. And brother mentioned earlier as a Zionist cancer in there, but since Israel came into the area, that area did not have stability since then. As you guys see, war after war, even if it's going to be civil, but Israel has a hand in that civil war, or if it's going to be a war between some Arab nation with Israel. But the main cause of all these wars is a Zionist ideology that established in the late 19th century and brought to Palestine. I think the sister had her hand. Sorry, brother.
I was wondering, in America, we have a lot of the media here is basically Zionist controlled. And oftentimes, like, if you say or speak out against Israel, I mean, just politically or just in terms of like the oppression that's happening, you're automatically labeled as anti Semitic. And so it's very like difficult sometimes to speak out even for non-Muslims because they also fear being labeled anti-Semitic. But I was wondering like why is it that the Christian population and a lot of Christians, specifically evangelicals, are very much in support of the Zionists. And I know I've been told like that Christians, the very religious ones, do believe that Jesus will return if like that land is controlled by the Jews or something like that. I've always kind of struggled to understand why so many Christians, like even like Meghan McCain and all these conservatives, are very in support of Zionism. I was wondering if you could speak to that a little bit.
Yes, definitely. Sister, you're absolutely right. Anyone that speaks for Palestinian right, they were labeled anti-Semitic. If you go and actually criticize Israel, they're actually trying to get to make laws in the state of California and also in the state capital that if you criticize Israel, you automatically anti-Semite, which is not true. So this is what we fought in the state legislature here in California and also in DC, that there's a free speech, and free speech basically in the United States is protected, and you could criticize any country as long as basically we're not talking about the religion aspect of it. As brother said earlier, Zionism is different than Judaism, and I have Jewish friends who are working for the Palestinian cause, and they're advocate for the Palestinian cause. One of the organizations that we work with is called Jewish Voice for Peace. They're way against the Zionism idea, and they're working towards the peace in our area in Palestine and establishing the Palestinian state. Again, it will be negotiated. It's going to be one state, two state, whatever the people in there and the will of the people are doing. But inshallah, it will be one state solution. That's what we are advocating for. That being said, these the same organization, Jewish Voice for Peace, themselves, they're Jewish, and they've been called anti-Semitic, and they're all Jewish. However, the fight continued, and we'll continue to fight against these labeling. Again, criticizing Israel is not anti-Semitic. Yes, labeling and talking about our brothers and sisters in the Jewish faith in a different tone could be anti-Semitic speech, but that's not what we're doing when we go ahead and advocate for the Palestinian cause. As far as the media, yes, this has been changing though. It is changing as long as we have folks like yourself, go to school and become a journalist, and you have the mic and you go ahead and do the story, which we have a lot. We've seen a lot. We see hijabi sisters as reporters in TVs here and in multiple stations, right? I've seen that happening. I've seen a lot of from folks from an Arab background. They're journalists and they're involved in the process. And I see folks we have in the state legislature in multiple states. They became elected. We have a congresswoman right now, like Ilhan Omar, right? You guys know Ilhan Omar? Yeah. So Ilhan Omar, a hijabi sister, she's in Congress. This is how we change the narrative, by involving in the process, either in the media or either in Congress or either in the state legislature or even in the Democratic Party. I was talking to the brother about how the Democratic Party is shifting. Yeah, without our involvement, the Democratic Party is pro-Zionist, 100%, right? Now the narrative is actually changing, and we see it here in the state of California and in a local level. Like last year when the war happened, I talked about multiple resolutions that got established condemning the Israeli governments. Were actually passed in the Democratic Party by a majority of the folks voting for us as a Palestinian cause and for the Muslim community here in the state of California. So again, without our involvement, without talking, without being involved in the process, how are you going to change things if you're not working within? So you're going to work within that system, journalism. So we need more journalists who are Muslims. We need more journalists who are pro and against injustice anywhere, as a brother mentioned, justice against Palestinian or any injustice anywhere. So your narrative will be important when you go ahead and actually enter that system and change it. And I know, brother.
Yeah. So actually, brother, sorry, we're under time crunch. It's already top of the hour now, and we have to wrap up. So
okay.
So thank you so much, brother, for such an educated session. And we know that for sure we need to leverage from you, but unfortunately, inshallah, next time we will leverage. Inshallah. Thanks so much.
Inshallah. I'm right here. If you have any question, yes, I'm willing to answer. Definitely.
So,
I'll be right here. So inshallah, lastly, I want to do a dua. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. اللهم انصر الإسلام والمسلمين اللهم انصر الإسلام والمسلمين اللهم اجمعنا جميعا في ساحات الأقصى يا الله اللهم اجمعنا جميعا في ساحات الأقصى يا الله وقد تحرر من دنس المحتلين اللهم آمين اللهم آمين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد.
Thank you so much, brother. May Allah bless you, inshallah. Say louder salawat for our brother Marat as well. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So we're moving to the next phase of the program, in which we have a short quiz. This quiz is made by Sister Iman Ali, and it will be conducted by Amina Nakwi. It's a short quiz, and the prizes will be given right after the quiz. So I request Amina, please come forward and conduct this quiz then. You have the quiz, right? Brother and sister, after this quiz, inshallah, we will have a closing remarks from our Sayyid, inshallah. So, you guys have, by the way, full meal aftar, so you can stay up all night. It's between you and Sayyid, you know. I will leave you alone. Yes. Sister Iman? She's no, she's not here. That's why she's filling in. Amina is filling in for her. Oh, okay. Well, okay. Let's see. Let's give it a couple of minutes, then otherwise we will then maybe push it out. Then maybe. We'll- So, meantime, the brothers and sisters, we are still preparing for this quiz. So, one of the things that I would just share my thought that one of the reason that we are behind in defending Muslims all over the world is disunity among Muslims. Disunity is causing, is contributing big time in this problem. If we as individual, as a community, as a country, if we connect all these dots, I can tell you, it would have a big impact, in this. And there are very few, by the way. They are not like big in number, but they are controlling resources, finance all over the world, and they are using it in their own favor. So if we Muslims, for example, in the Bay Area, we have 300,000 Muslims in this Bay Area, by the way, and but unfortunately, we have not seen Muslims coming forward against oppression anywhere. So that is the dilemma here, basically. So inshallah, next year, I hope inshallah we will do better efforts to mobilize Muslims in our communities and to stand and fulfill our responsibility. And silence is not an option here at all. Standing on the sidelines means you are basically partnering with the oppressors. Okay, so brothers and sisters, seems that we have some technical issue here in the quiz, so maybe we will conduct the quiz part. So we're skipping quiz from tonight's program. So inshallah, we will do some other time if possible. And I would request now our Sayyid, please come forward and have a share his thoughts and then do the closing remarks. Then, Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Inshallah. What was the iftar? What was the food for iftar? Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين واللعنة الدائمة على أعدائهم أجمعين من الآن إلى لقاء يوم الدين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. May Allah inshallah accept your amal, your dua, your inshallah effort in all aspects. And inshallah make the rest of this month of Ramadan, the month and the time of forgiveness and maghfirat for all of us inshallah. ببركة الصلوات على محمد وآل محمد. Time already passed, about very quick, 5 to 10 minutes, just different approach towards this topic. Let's go to Quran, Surah Qasas, and see that what will finally happen and what is the result of all these things. And I think one of the questions was as well where we are leading and what will happen finally. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in Surah Qasas, آية 4, بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن فرعون علا في الأرض وجعل أهلها شيعا يستضعف طائفة منهم يذبح أبناءهم ويستحيي نساءهم إنه كان من المفسدين. Allah talks about Fir'aun and what he did on the earth. علا في الأرض. He, with his approach, bringing the fasad and corruption to the earth, thinking that he's the highest power and he has the higher hand, he did certain things. That's why he's Fir'aun, and that's how he tried to destroy his qawm. وَجَعَلَ أَهْلَهَا شِيَعًا. Number one thing that he did, he made the community divided. He divided this community into different groups. He brought tafraqa, division among people. And if nowadays you see that it's Shia, Sunni, make them fight in certain point of the world, keep them busy with each other. One of the major things Fir'aun did, that's why he was trying to, rule over the people, was to bring tafraqa among people. And this is Quran is mentioning, right? And then يَسْتَضْعِفْ طَائِفَةً مِّنْهُمْ. He started, by making group of them, which is the group of Bani Israel, make them very weak, oppress them. يَسْتَضْعِفُ, it doesn't mean they were weak people. Because of oppression, made them weak. So by nature, they were not weak. They were strong people and believers, right? But by the oppression, took the power from them and make them weaker. And then how did he treat them? يُذَبِّهْ أَبْنَاءَهُمْ وَيَسْتَحْيِي نِسَاءَهُم. He did zabh. One of the tafasir of here, zabh, why it says zabh? Zabh is for animal slaughtering, right? The way that he treated them like animal. يُذَبِّهْ أَبْنَاءَهُم. He slaughtered their sons and he left the daughters for the sake of, the whatever pleasure and so. إِنَّهُ كَانَ مِنَ الْمُفْسِدِينَ. He was among the mufsideen, those who bring corruption on the earth, right? When we, and I tell you, when we recite the Quran and we read the tafsir, and what happened is that Pharaoh, he had a dream that the houses of Egypt are on fire because he made them in two different groups, Qibti and Sibti. Qibtis, he kept them, rich. Sibti, he was the one who was oppressing them, right? Qawm Musa later on. So what he did, he heard by the Mufassirin that he had, and Mu'abbirin actually he had, that there will be a person who would come and would end the what? The hukumat and the government of Pharaoh and Pharaoh. So he started within 20 years. He started killing thousands and thousands of sons, little children. Whoever was a son, were killing them. Some of the numbers is 90,000 to 100,000 little innocent children were killed. So he would not have the challenge. This is how Pharaoh think. By killing, by destroying, by oppressing, we're going to have the ala fil ard. We're going to have the higher power. That's how he thought. Right? So he literally said, whenever any woman who is pregnant, we bring the ghabila, the one who the doula, from the Qibti, from his own side. So anyone who have son, they were reporting to the government to kill them. That's how they think. If you do this, you're going to keep the power, right? And then the way that he oppressed them by, for example, in one of the tomb that he was making, the Pharaoh, that it took years and years to make, and thousands of the community, the people, the society were working for him and were killed in that side of building those, tombs that he made for himself. This is how he thought. If he do this, he's going to have the power. Not knowing that Allah's plan, Wallahu khairul makirin. That man is going to be raised in his house, inside. You're going to go against the plan of Allah. He knows how to make something. You raised him by your hand. I said this for this. And then, yes, you do the zeb. You oppress them. Everything that you can, you think you can do it. And do fasad and everything else. This is what I'm going to talk about. Actually, I said that. Remember that Pharaoh, what he did. وَنُرِيدُ أَن نَمُنَّ عَلَى الَّذِينَ اسْتُضْعِفُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ وَنَجْعَلُهُمْ أَئِمَّةً وَنَجْعَلُهُمُ الْوَارِثِينَ. That Pharaoh with that, وَنُرِيدُ أَن نَمُنَّ عَلَى الَّذِينَ اسْتُضْعِفُوا. We made this decree. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, now he's talking about himself. وَنُرِيدُ. When Allah says he wants kun fayakun, when he wants something happen, it will happen, right? وَنُرِيدُ أَن نَمُنَّ عَلَى الَّذِينَ. We decreed this. We want that those mustad'afin, that they were not weak, they were oppressed, that's why the power were taken away from them, they will have the higher. We make them a'imma. We make them the leaders. They will finally become the leaders and the inheritors. Finally, the power will go belong to them and goes to them. And the point, in interesting, this is in Arabic fi'l mudari, istimrar. In this ayah, Allah didn't say, we made Bani Israel powerful finally. No, it's istimrar throughout the history. Anytime, anywhere we have mustad'afin, وَنُرِيدُ أَن نَمُنَّ عَلَى الَّذِينَ تُعْرِفُوا. Anytime this will happen, that these people would have the power and, will get the power. So this is the promise of Allah, brothers and sisters. And again, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He wants that to happen. Here in this earth, actually, in this world that we are living. Until then, time of Bani Israel, there were different groups of people. One group were Qibtis with Pharaoh. Another group were against them, but finally were with Musa. We had the third group. They were swinging. Sometimes with Pharaoh. We heard Musa is coming. The Savior will come. Until then, we're going to be with Pharaoh. Very familiar, right? In the story of Amir al-Mu'mineen. Right now, we might have the third group as well. They don't know where they're standing. They don't know their position. Swinging here and there. This wa'ada of Allah, the promise of Allah, will finally happen. It's up to the people that what position they take in their lives. What I have to believe in, where I have to, for what side I have to stand up, right? And yes, you know, when you can imagine, when you can feel what happened and what is happening to this innocent people now, right now, is when you're at home at night, they come, kick you out of your house, and you want to go to police and helps you. The police support the oppressors. Then you feel, what does it mean? From your own house, your own land, you'll be kicked out. Because maybe thousand years ago, we have two prophets somewhere, you know. Yeah, this is our deen. We talked about Jumu'ah prayer. Remember this whole topic of almost 1 hour, we talked about this. That this is our responsibility. And the result belong to this group of people. The end. Finally on this earth. And the best tafsir of this ayah, it already came true. One, at the time of Rasulullah Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. They were in the lower power, right? They were mustadafin. How many group of Muslims? They were oppressed. And Shayba Abi Talib, killed, tortured, all those things, right? You see that they got the power finally. And in our time, the best tafsir of that mufassir are saying, this is the most promising ayah for the dhuhur of our Imam Mahdi alayhi salatu wassalam. That yes, finally with Mahdi min Ali Muhammad, finally with that power and the savior that he will come, this will happen. The true power goes to those who truly are inheritors of the power. But in this path, it's our responsibility, brothers and sisters, to inshallah find our responsibility, our inshallah duties towards that. And as I mentioned today, we have to be careful not to be numb, desensitized about things that are happening around us. We have to talk. We have to bring awareness to people, and inshallah be rewarded with that. And the ayat and traditions that I mentioned, that man asbaha wa lam yahtamma bi umur al-muslimin falaysa bi muslim. If you wake up, if you stand up, and you're not thinking about Muslimin around the world, what kind of Muslim you can be? That's why this jama'ah, this ummah, kuntum khayru ummah. This ummah is why it's the best ummah, because it's one. It's united together, regardless of the ideologies and everything else and differences in madhab and maktab, doesn't matter. It's one ummah, right? This is our responsibility, inshallah, to stand and continue this path. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammadin wa ajjil farajhum. Allahumma ajjil waliyaka al-faraj wal-afiyata wal-nasr wa mudda fi umrihi al-sharif. وزين الأرض بطول بقائه واجعلنا من أعوانه وأنصاره وشيعته يا رحمن يا رحيم ثبت قلوبنا على دينك. We ask you, Allah, for the sake of the rest of this month, bring the last Savior Mahdi to save the world. Ya Allah, Ya Rahman, Ya Rahim, let us be among the true Muslimin and Mu'mineen. Ya Allah, let us be active in the path of supporting all those oppressed around the world. Ya Allah, Ya Rahman, Ya Rahim, make this zakhira for dunya wal akhirah. Ya Allah, Ya Rahman, Rahim, anyone being oppressed around the world in Palestine, Bahrain, Yemen, all around the world, Afghanistan, Pakistan, provide the opportunity for their permanent, the true freedom. Ya Allah, Ya Rahman, Ya Rahim, we ask you, those brothers and sisters who have hajat, give them khair hajat. Those who are sick, cure them. Those who passed away, send the thabab and reward from all our gathering to the soul. Rahimallah man yaqra'u al-fatihata ma salawat.
متوجه زيارة السلام عليك يا رسول الله، السلام عليك يا نبي الله ورحمة الله وبركاته، السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين وسيد الوصيين ورحمة الله وبركاته، السلام عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء سيدة النساء العالمين ورحمة الله وبركاته، السلام عليك أيها الحسن المجتبى وإمام الهدى ورحمة الله وبركاته، السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله الحسين أيها الشهيد بكربلاء ورحمة الله وبركاته، السلام على 9 المعصومين من ذرية الحسين. السلام عليك يا صاحب العصر والزمان، الأمان الأمان من فتنة الزمان. السلام عليك يا شريك القرآن. السلام عليك يا إمامنا وإمام الإنس والجان. عجل الله تعالى فرجك وسهل الله تعالى مخرجك وظهورك ورحمة الله وبركاته.